UConn is not moving from the number 1 seed in the polls anytime soon.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball, your number 1 sports podcast that you can find on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So who are you looking at on the screen right now? Great question. Sophia Jones, our analyst for the Golden State Valkyries. I'm Clea Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky. And let's go over what we are going to talk about today in the world of women's basketball. Some more CBA conversations, we'll just say that. More Unrivaled headliners as well. There was some fun games last night. And also UConn obviously doing UConn things at the top of the polls once again. And this really came at no surprise to people. But this is the first time all season that they were the unanimous number 1 vote. They received all 800 points. They received all votes. But there's been some shifts as well. I think one that stands out to me within, let's say, this top 10, LSU had moved down to number 12 and is back up just one place under where they were before. They're sitting at number 6 now after their win over Texas. Texas is dropping down to number 4, but South Carolina and UCLA both have shifted up. Sophia, what does this top 10 look like to you right now?
Well, how you said it at first, where UConn for the first time this season, unanimous number 1. Texas was around the number 2 for a little bit, especially after they beat UCLA and South Carolina. They consistently received some votes, and some people did regard them as that number 1 seed. But now UConn definitely by itself after Texas suffered their first loss. For LSU being number 6, I think that they putting a lot of weight in that win that they gained against Texas, because they have them over Kentucky, a team that they actually lost to. But Kentucky went and turned around and lost their following game after beating LSU, but then beat Oklahoma. So they're definitely cemented themselves into that top 10. And then just rounding out the rest, Michigan at number 8, who has gained a little bit more momentum. Louisville at number 9, who is quietly just putting together a really, or maybe not quietly, but they're putting a very, very solid resume together. They're looking like the top team in the ACC. And then rounding out that number 10 would be TCU. They had their first loss of the season a couple games ago, which is why they dropped. But now we are seeing them re-enter that top 10.
Yeah, another one that stands out is Vanderbilt, obviously beating LSU. So they're still above them in the polls right now, but they're just one of 3 unbeaten teams alongside UConn and number 17, Texas Tech. And it has its highest ranking since the final poll of 2002 when they were in 4th place. So when you talk about a team that maybe is or is not quietly making their own moves, I feel like Vanderbilt might be in that conversation too. Obviously, Michaela Blakes is a standout for that team and is really continuing to put them on the map and moving them up in the AP polls. An exciting team that I really enjoy watching and that I said was maybe a little bit of a sleeper team. Illinois has finally made the top 25 poll as well. They are sitting right at 25. They're 14-3 on the season and overall looking pretty solid so far in Big Ten play.
Yeah, I think that is a very well-deserved spot for Illinois to be in. They had some great wins, really putting together, like you said, a solid resume. Some more drastic shifts was Maryland fell 4 spots after they lost to Minnesota. So I can see that. Oklahoma dropped 8 spots. So I don't know if voters were just extremely not convinced by what Oklahoma was doing, but I was surprised to see them slide that much because they were just in the number 5 spot. They lost to Kentucky, and they lost to Ole Miss. So putting together back-to-back losses, but those are also both ranked opponents. So they put a lot of weight on those losses. So I'm surprised to see that they fell that low. Another team that rose was Ohio State, who rose 5 spots. I mean, if you're not paying attention to Jelani Cambridge at this point, what are you doing watching being a women's basketball consumer? She's one of the best guards in the country, and she has really put that team on her back. And falling again 8 spots is now number 19, Iowa State. They're in a little bit of a rough stretch right now. I think that's the most drastic movement that I've seen from the polls. I wouldn't say surprising because of their loss, but it is surprising that they did lose, because looking at their last 3 drop games was to Baylor, who at that time was ranked, Cincinnati unranked, and then West Virginia unranked. However, West Virginia does kind of hover around every once in a while. They're at the top of the other receiving vote category. But Iowa State, they are on a very slippery slope going downhill, and it's going to take some reconstruction on their team to get back to the state that they were, because they were consistently right at that number 10 spot.
It's going to take some defensive stops for Iowa State to get them back climbing in the AP polls. But some other teams receiving votes, you mentioned West Virginia. Duke is receiving votes still. North Carolina had dropped out of the rankings after their loss, but still receiving votes, as well as Washington and USC. All have dropped from the rankings, but are receiving votes. Some conference supremacy. Again, the SEC has 9 teams in the top 25 polls, including 5 of the first 7, which makes them just slightly better than the Big Ten, who also has 9 teams ranked in a single week this season. It has 8 ranked teams this week. The Big 12 has 4. The ACC has 2. The Big East, obviously, the sole one contender coming out is UConn. And the Ivy League as well has just 1 with Princeton. But the Big Ten continuing to show that they are going neck and neck with the SEC. It's kind of just those top teams that they have. The SEC has them beat a little bit in. But overall, there's some games to look out for coming up on Thursday that can shift these polls even more. Texas is going up against, I got this wrong last time, guys. I looked at the game prior, not the game next. They're not playing Auburn. Texas is playing South Carolina, and this is a very difficult comeback for them to play LSU and then now have to go up against currently sitting at number 2 South Carolina. I think this is going to really be a test for Texas and how they can bounce back from wins or losses in the SEC.
Yeah, they beat South Carolina once this season, but that was on a neutral site. This game will be played in South Carolina, which is a whole nother beast in itself. South Carolina has looked really strong recently. They got Tanaya Latson back playing, who she was out for a little bit with an injury, but she's come back. So that is not something that is a confidence booster if you're the opponent. But it's definitely going to be a test of character for Texas. Like I said, they beat them once before, so they have that formula to success, but can they replicate it?
Absolutely. Some other games to look out for. We will break these down throughout the week, but it's going to be some obviously tests as we keep looking at these AP polls each week. This is week 11. LSU and Oklahoma is going up against each other Sunday. Illinois, Michigan Thursday. Maryland, USC Thursday. Tennessee, Alabama Sunday. Louisville, Notre Dame Thursday. Nebraska and Michigan State Thursday. So some big ones coming up that can still really shake up what these polls look like. But coming up after this, we are going to get into a little bit of an unrivaled recap from Monday night's games. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, the first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy and confident. As a Chicago native, I enjoy going to the Bulls games, but sometimes you still just never know, wherever your section is, what that view is really going to look like. So this has been very beneficial because it gives you a little 3D screen that you can really zoom in and see the action. So I highly suggest using Game Time to do so. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in network, nearby, with availability, but you also want a doctor who really listens, makes you feel comfortable, explains things clearly, and helps you walk out feeling confident about your next step. Your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding them is easy with Zocdoc. Zocdoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high quality in-network doctors so you can choose someone you truly connect with. Being able to choose in-person or video visits makes scheduling way easier. As somebody that has kind of an interesting schedule working in sports, it's nice to have the option that I can either meet with a doctor over Zoom, whatever the case may be, or if I have the time to be able to go in person, because we all just have to make sure we're doing all right at the end of the day. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks to Zocdoc for sponsoring this message. Okay, Unrivaled. Some fun ones yesterday. There was just 2 games that were played. They treated us well over the weekend, so can't ask for too much now. But the Phantom beat the Mist 64-61. Kelsey Plum had hit the game-winning shot for that one. And overall, obviously a very tight contest given the score. The Phantom are starting to look like another really solid contender. Obviously, all eyes have been on the Rose. The eyes have been on the Breeze, the youth. But the Phantom, when you have an Aaliyah Boston, Natasha Cloud, Kelsey Plum, Tip Hayes, Kiki Iriafen, those are not players to be messed with.
Definitely not. And Phantom dropped their first game against the Breeze. And in that game, I felt like watching Kelsey Plum was still getting adjusted to the full court 3-on-3 pace, physicality of everything. And it only took her one game to figure out, because she immediately turned around and had that 38-point game. She had the game winner here, finished with 18 points, 8 of 18. So she was really just doing her thing for the Phantom. And she's the exact archetype of a player that really thrives in a 3-on-3, because not only does she have an extremely deep bag, but she's also a very pesky defender, and she's just extremely competitive. She has her own camp after her called Dog Class, just talking about having or getting recruiting players that have that dog in them, because Kelsey Plum has it. So she has really been that force for the Phantom, but Aaliyah Boston has really come around as well. I think from last Unrivaled season to this one, even looking at her development in the WNBA season, she looked a lot more comfortable stepping away from the block, being a little bit more mobile, rim running and doing all that stuff. And I think between Boston and Kiki Iriafen in that backcourt for Phantom, they are looking like a very, very dangerous team. And this is even without Dana Evans, Zaza James, and Satu Sabali, who is out with that concussion she suffered back in the WNBA playoffs.
Yeah, that's exactly the point that I was going to mention too. You're seeing what they're capable of doing right now. Again, drop to the Breeze, but they've been able to bounce back really quickly without some additional threats. Obviously, Dana Evans coming off a championship, Zaza James coming out of the pool that they use for players, as well as Satu Sabli, who was also in the finals. You have some high caliber players that are not with you right now, but still getting the job done. Really exciting to see. Another game was the Laces and the Lunar Owls. The Laces beat the Lunar Owls 84-72. And honestly, I know Fee has to be a little sick right now. This is her team. Obviously, she can't play because she is getting surgery on both of her ankles after suffering her own injuries within the WNBA season at the end. Obviously, without Skylar Diggins as well. And it just seems like they're really kind of struggling to mesh with each other. I feel like they have a lot of solid guard play when you look at a Marina Mabry. Beck Allen can kind of float as well. Rachel Banham. And then obviously you have Aaliyah Edwards, who's more at that forward position, who had 38 points in the game. She is somebody that has really kind of held this team together. I feel like after the first game that I saw where she had to go out, unfortunately, due to injury, I believe she had ran in with Dearica Hamby, but she had left that game. But during that time, while she was still on the court, she was the one that was basically carrying the team on her back. Obviously, she is one of the, I believe she is the youngest player on the team. She's one of those players that's incredibly versatile. She's been able to create her own shots. She's really dangerous to get around the rim. But yeah, it just kind of seems like they're still trying to flow with each other, but it's just not quite there yet.
That's the best way that I could describe it, because they have all the pieces. It's just about meshing. This is a completely different group of players that are on the Lunar Owls this year compared to last year. And of course, whenever you have Napheesa Collier and Skylar Diggins out, it's going to affect how that team flows and competes. But like you mentioned, having Aaliyah Edwards and her return was a huge boost for that team. 38 points just doesn't come out of thin air. She was 16 of 19. So that was crazy. She had 13 rebounds as well. And don't forget, this is the same player that as a unrivaled rookie and as a general rookie, she beat Brianna Stewart in the one-on-one unrivaled competitions last year and actually had a pretty solid deep run of herself. So she's used to getting her own buckets in this format. But the Laces were not going to be a team that just rolled over. This was going to be a difficult one for them. Brittany Sykes has been really outstanding for the Laces, another just player that thrives in these 3-on-3 formats because she is athletic. She is incredibly in shape, never looks like she gets tired. So has that fitness to her and a two-way player. So she loves the defensive end of the floor just as much as the offensive end.
Yeah, speaking about the winning team, as you mentioned, Brittany Sykes, 25 points for them. She did hit the game-winning layup. She was 9 of 16 from the field. You also have Jackie Young, also another player coming off a championship. She had 22 points. You have Alyssa Thomas contributing 10. And then Jordan Canada with 10 points as well. Maddie Segrist, 13 points. They're a roster that I really like the format of them when we're talking about, some teams that can flow with each other. I think they have a really healthy balance of dominant guard play, but also some guards that can be kind of at that point forward position. And then obviously just some bigs as well. They're a very mobile team, I feel like is what I would like to describe them as.
Definitely. And in a 3-on-3 format where if you can get a bucket, you can get a bucket, the Laces, more so than some of the other teams I've watched in Unrivaled, they actually have really great ball movement as well, which is really hard to do because you're essentially on an island. The court's a little condensed, so there's not as much room to really get some offensive flow. But I mean, when you have Alyssa Thomas on the floor, she is going to do that. I saw them pull out a couple of inverted pick and rolls, and I was like, that's exactly in the Nate Tibbetts handbook or guidebook. So that was just a fun callback for me to see as well. But Laces definitely a strong contender, and they looked pretty comfortable getting this win against the Lunar Owls.
We will get to see more of Unrivaled this upcoming weekend. They are done so far for the week. Coming up after this, we're going to give you some more information that has come about the WNBA CBA.
Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Women's Basketball compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. Go to lockedonwomensbasketball.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more.
I carry a lot of responsibility in my household. If something happened to me, there would be serious consequences. We have a mortgage, we got tuition, we got everyday bills. Those aren't going anywhere if something happens to me. And I know that's an overwhelming feeling, but I'm taking steps to protect my family by getting life insurance through Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast, easy, and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. And as of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 3,000 reviews. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get your free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. That's ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. Ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. Application times and rates may vary.
Hey guys, sorry about that. So updates with the CBA. On Monday, the WNBA and its Players Union agreed to a moratorium for League Business Monday. Now, if you're somebody that's like me, no clue what that word was, so I did, in fact, search it up. It is a temporary official suspension or delay of a specific activity, law, or obligation imposed by an authority. So essentially, what this means that the sides are continuing to negotiate in good faith, which we found out from Sophia and thankfully to her mother, just typical, law words that are being thrown around. But this does halt initial stages of free agency in which teams would seek to deliver qualifying offers and franchise tag designations to players. So obviously we've talked about this before. It kind of them not coming to an agreement just yet kind of backs everything up between free agency, between the expansion draft. Sophia, what more can you tell us about a moratorium?
Yeah, this makes sense for both sides, probably more so the players, I would even think, because whatever deals are presented and signed would be applicable under the last CBA. So unless players want to take a major pay cut, which hopefully they got the major up pay grade in this new CBA, this moratorium period makes sense. And because free agency rules are among the negotiation priorities in this new upcoming CBA, that's another reason why they enter this period where it's just still the status quo. Free agency hasn't come into effect yet. But another big reason why they are going into this period of moratorium is because the Players Union would like to eliminate the core designation, which allows franchises to exercise an additional 2 years of team control over unrestricted free agents. That core designation is another one where a team can essentially have exclusive negotiating rights with a single player. So the players don't want that. However, the WNBA has insisted on maintaining the core as a team building tool. So that is just another priority in the laundry list of things that this new CBA is trying to accomplish. The WNBA Players Union would also like to shorten the length of rookie contracts from 4 years to 3. That would be another thing that is affected in a potential free agency period because some teams might not know who is technically a quote unquote free agent or not. And lastly, how free agents are classified will also impact the expansion drafts for the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire. So that is a huge one right there because in previous expansion drafts, the expansion teams were allowed to select only one unrestricted free agent because each organization could only core one player. So there's the core again. So if they get rid of that core, then it could affect how many free agents these expansion clubs could sign, which again, it all is tied into what this new CBA could look like and what they're trying to accomplish with it, which is why just having the moratorium be like, let's focus on getting this done as opposed to adding more pieces to the puzzle is essentially what both sides are doing.
To your point, I feel like that makes the most sense because maybe this is just based on the information that has been presented at times. There's just so many factors that go into the CBA as a whole. When you're looking at it big picture wise, it just seems like there's still a lot of ground to cover. As you mentioned, it kind of feels like this is just keeping it the main thing for right now so that they can try to come to an agreement as quickly as possible. I am very curious to see if the league will agree to have meetings, or maybe they have and we just don't know about it, but agree to have meetings in Miami. Sophia's going to be at Unrivaled on Friday. She's going to be able to see firsthand. Maybe we can get her to sneak in the back, see what's going on. We won't tell on her, though. We can't tell on her, guys. We have to keep this between.
This is all like hypothetical, you know?
This is hypothetical, but
since we're talking about legalities in this segment.
Exactly. We could keep boots on the ground and it's going to be Sophia. But very curious to see what these conversations have even looked like at Unrivaled. Unfortunately to say that Nafisa Collier is hurt. So I feel like this does give her a substantial amount of time to really break these things down, have conversations. I will say they have to have an absolutely fantastic legal team, somebody to be relying on, because these are new thing and like new pieces of information I would never know or probably even care to do any research about until I found out what was going on with the CBA. And each day, the more information I get, I'm like, wow, I should have just gone to law school at this point. Like I'm learning, actually, I don't need to. I'm learning so much through this. Like I feel like this counts as a class.
Exactly. My prior knowledge or law knowledge to this was I loved the show How to Get Away with Murder. Like, shout out Viola Davis. I watched that twice, and then I took a constitutional law class in my senior year of high school that got cut short because of COVID. So that's about all my law knowledge, but it's fun learning about all these different terms and some things that I'm hearing. It's like, oh, you know what? I actually do remember that. Moratorium, I did not hear of before. That is why I have my mother, who is an actual lawyer and practices. So it's good to have that in-house legal counsel, if you will.
I love that, the in-house legal counsel, because she really has been helping out. She's breaking down the terms. I mean, honestly, the extent of my knowledge is I passed the Constitution test in middle school, high school, and that's all I needed to do. But that'll do it for us on Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining us today.